Sen yemiyorsun. So guys, hi to everyone again. Okay, so we'll start from the question. Godolet, please quickly.
Нечаянно вошел, нечаянно.
Да, надо отключить тогда. Okay, let me share my screen and okay, we'll start with the examples, desktop examples, PP1. Okay, we have the week number 3 and your group is G3. So all the examples from this lecture will be inside of the week number 3 and G3. Okay, let me quickly prepare the frame. Oops, using namespace. Return 0. From our previous lecture, we just skipped the last subsection, which is a loop. So that's why we have to start and finish the loops and try to start the next topic with the arrays today's lecture. Okay. Can you hear me? Give me some feedback. Everything is okay? Everything's okay, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, all the examples until today's lecture, what we did, for instance, we are setting some instructions, so creating the variables, doing some actions, we're doing some mathematical operations, and all the operations after compiling of code, when we are running, they will be implemented only once, and they will be finished. But in some cases, there is a requirement to do the same action or the similar action several times. For that reasons, we have the logic of the loop inside of the C++. So the loop operators, so the loop operations, will be can be found inside of any programming language, because this is a key point for working the list of items or for doing some actions repeatedly many times. For instance, especially in C++, we have the 3 types of the loop: for loop, while loop, and do while loop. So let's start from the for loop. So for the syntaxes, keyword for will be started for the for loop, and we will be separated to the 3 sections. First one is initializing the iterator. Iterator is just a variable that will be changed for each iteration. Iteration is just a step, one by one. So the iteration, initializing the iteration, is just the first block of the if loop. Second one is condition with the iterator. Last one is changing the iterator. It might be the increasing, it might be the decreasing value of the iterator. And after that, we'll open the body of the for loop. And here I have the expression or instruction of the for loop. So this is our basic syntaxes and pseudocode for understanding the for loop. So the example, for it's a keyword. Let's create the initializer, so the iterator. So the iterator, basically we will use the integer values. It's just a counter. Mostly it might be the last, just like I, to create an indicator. And second one is a condition. So the condition might be For instance, I starts from the 0 and I should be while I is less than 10. We will do the something. It's a second section, which is a condition. Last one is the changing of the value of the I. So let's change it by 1 each time. So it's the initial point which says I equals to the 0. Second one says while I, which is a 0, is less than 10. In that case, do the instructions inside of the for block. So just print out the I. Okay, let's try to compile it and run it. As you can see, we can see the list of numbers from 0 until the 9. Why without 10? Because we don't have here the question, so the equal sign. If you put it and recompile it, you will have the 10 also. So we are just printing out the I, which is the iterator. Each time we are changing the value by 1. If you change it to like 2, you will get the only even numbers. If you start from the 1, you will get the only odd numbers between these two numbers. Between these two changes, you can start from the 0 until the 100 and change it so that this, if it's a 1, you can change it like a I. So let's leave this example as the first one. And here we have the, instead of this one, we can put it I++. About it, you already know. Let's add some condition inside it. So for each item, we can change it like we can check for the even or odd. For instance, if I'm putting like this, I'm checking for the even numbers. So it means starting from the 1 until the 20 in our case will be the check it for the even numbers, and even numbers will be listed. This is just a basic usage of the for loop, and the sections of the for loop can be explained. And then, okay, so the even odd we already discussed. So time to the infinity loop. Infinity loop. So in our previous example, we have the 20 here. So before the infinity loop, let's see one more example with the negative value. So which means, let's remove this one. So we so if you run the third example, you will have the such like a result. And when we are increasing the value, you can do it the opposite side. You can start the so you can start from the 10. You can start from the 10, but in this case, you have to, instead of the increasing, you have to decrease the value. So you can also do it like increasing by the 100. If you can also increase. But now I want to show the decreasing the values. For instance, starting from the 10 until the 0. So in that case, this condition is incorrect because I starts from the 10 and I cannot be less than 0. It should be opposite. While I is more than 0 or equal, in that case, we will start the loop and it will show this type of the result, which is decreasing order numbers starting from 10 until the 0. This is just the opposite one of the first example. First example, it's an increasing number. This is a decreasing numbers. And the next example is infinity loop, as we started. Infinity loop, it's just a loop which don't have any restrictions. For the for loop, so if you leave all 3 sections empty, in that case you will have the infinity loop. Let's create a variable n, which is equals to the 0, cout n equals to n and n++. If you run this code, you will have such like a result. So let's add handle here to see the numbers. Oops. If you run it, you will have such like a result without any restrictions, because it will just keep going to increasing the number and showing the results until your laptop's memory will hold those numbers. This type of the loop will be the infinity loop, but it should be, you should use it carefully, because somehow in somewhere with some condition you have to stop the working of this infinity loop. For instance, if n equals to so n equals to 1000, in that case I want to stop it. How can I stop it? We have the keyword called break. Break means manually stop the working of the for loop. If you run it, you will have only 999, because after the 1000 it breaks our for loop, even if it's an infinity loop. So we'll have the break. We have the two words break and continue. Continue, it's just an example. So let's do it here. If n divided by 2 multiply, the divided by 2 equals to the 1. In that case, I want to continue. So the continue means, continue says to the compiler, after the 13th line, if given number is odd number, in that case, so let's take this code and put it before the cout. So if given number is odd number, in that case, it should skip the current iteration. So this part of the code will be skipped, which means if the given number is odd, it should start again next iteration. Next iteration, and that's it. For CPP, and if you run it, you will have such like a result, which means if you can see from the output, you cannot find any odd numbers in the outputs. They are all even numbers. Why? Because we are putting here the condition that if number is odd, in that case, skip to the next iteration, which means n will be increased by 1 and cout will be executed. If it's an odd number, after the 13th line, it will go up and start from the beginning of the for loop. This is a task for the continue. A break means just stop the working of the for loop. 5 CPP. Okay, infinity loop, all the numbers which are divisible by 3, and so you're given the numbers A, B, and C. Let's read these numbers. And the task is you have to find divisors of the C in the range of A and B. So here we have the rule that A should be districtly less than B. So question is, we have the range A and B. A, it's the left side, B, it's the right side. It's just the integer numbers. And C, it's just a number. So you have to find the divisors of the C in this range. For that, we start in the for loop. Starts from not 0, not only the fixed number, it will start from the A. So it will work until the B, which is the second number. And we are just listing the all numbers between this range. And decided to check if I, the current number, divisible by C is a 0, which means it's a divisor of the C. In that case, I want to see out the I. Let's try it. 5 CPP. So I'm saying 10, it's a left side boundary, 20, and show me the between these two numbers divisors of the 3. So here is the divisors of the 3 between these two ranges. The same thing, it might be the 10, 100, and let it be the 8 divisors of the 8 between these two ranges. So it's just the first task, and we have the subtask of this extending this task. So the second one says show the number of divisors. So the number of divisors, which means if this input, you have to show this list of divisors, and after that show the how many of them. 1, 2, 3. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you have to count how many times you found the divisor. For that, we want to create a variable CNT, which is the initial equals to the 0. Why? Because we are assuming that we don't have any divisors. And after that, after the if condition, if this condition turns true, which means we found the divisor. In that case, we are just increasing the value of the CNT, which is that we have just counting one more time. So we are saying that we found the divisor, and again and again. After finishing the for loop, we are just printing out the CNT and handle 5 CPP and running 10, 20, and 3. So as you can see, we have here the divisors and the number followed by. That's why let's add handle before the CNT to show it in the new line. Oops. Compile it again. 10, 20, and 3. 10, 30, and 5. The divisors of the 5 are between these two range and their count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is just a simple examples for working with the for and working with the if conditions and so on. Again, if you have the questions, please take a note. So we'll move on. Counting the divisors will be discussed. Prime numbers, I think you already know which is the prime numbers. So the prime, it's a minimum, it's a 2. The prime numbers are those numbers which can be divided by itself and by 1. So 2, 3, 5, 7, 9. Is it a prime number or not?
No, it's not right now.
Not
Why?
Can be divided by 3.
Can be divided by 3. That's why it's not prime number. After the 7, we have the 11, we have the 13, we have the 17, we have the 19 and 23 and so on. 23 and so on. All other numbers will have the primes. Basically, it's just the even and odd numbers which can be divided by other numbers. What might be the 24 and so on, which are not primes. So your task is, you are given one number, you have to identify is it prime or not. It's a task for you, and you have to finish it at your home. You can just discuss the results of your code with your assistants during the practice lessons if the similar task doesn't exist in your lab works. Okay, Fibonacci sequence. The next question and next task is Fibonacci sequence. I think about this sequence you already know. It says that order defined only first 2 values, 0 and 1. All the next elements will be calculated using this formula. Pref1 and Pref2, which means next element, which is this one, will be calculated sum of these 2 numbers. It's a 1. This 2 will be calculated sum of these 2 numbers. 3 will be calculated sum of these 2 numbers. 5 sum of these 2 numbers, and so on. For all next elements will be implemented this formula. And your task is, you are given number n, show first n elements of the sequence. We are saying about the Fibonacci sequence. So you're given one number. So example is if you have the number 5, in that case result should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So without any commas, it might be. So if I'm entering the 5, you have to show such like a result as an output. This is our task. So integer n, we are getting this, sending the n, so that it's a number of elements which we have to show. So what we have, we already have defined that the n1 it's equals to the 0, n2 equals to the 1. It's already defined, and we have the formula like this. And we have to show all the numbers depending on the given n. So n might be 20, n might be 10, n might be 1, n might be even 0. That's why we have to work with the for loop. In our case, it's only for loop. We already discussed that's why. So we are starting from the 0 until the n plus plus. Why I am skipping equal sign here? Because if I am putting here equal sign, it will be not 5 times, it will be the 6 times, because we are starting from 0. That's why I'm writing without any equal sign. And inside it, I'm saying I, it's just an indicator to the sequence. I'm saying if index of the sequence equals to the 0. So what is the result? If index equals to 0, the result is 0. In that case, I want to see out n1. Why n1? n1, it's our defined value. Space. Else if index of the sequence equals to the 1. In that case, I want to print out n2, which is also defined. So this one also defined. For all other cases, I have to write a formula. I know about the formula because so they already define it. So I'm creating the variable integer next equals to n1 plus n2. So currently I'm saying about this value, about this 1. 1 equals to 0 plus 1. So I already calculated. Let's show this variable. So I'm showing this number. So okay. As a first example, we're saying that as a first iteration, we have the 0 and 1 as results. We have here n1 and n2 as the values. And here we have the next, which is undefined for now. But we already calculated it for the next element, which is the n1 and n2. And it becomes as a 0 plus 1, and the result is 1. Okay, I think this is clear. And what will be in the next iteration? In the next iteration, n1 plus n2. In the next iteration, it should be something like this, because already this one already defined it. And the question is, I have to find this number, which is the next one. But next one, I know that it should be sum of these two numbers, not this 0 and 1 again. It should be 1 and 1, which is the next two elements, which is the previous elements for this previous 1 and previous 2. So that's why in our formula, I already wrote that the n1 plus n2. But n1 plus n2, currently, it says, again, 1, which is not correct. That's why I have to just shift to the right side the values of the variables, which means n1, which was in the previous example 0, will take the value of the n2 in the next iteration. n2, which was a 1 in the previous iteration, it will take the value of the next. So this is just a key point. n1 equals to the n2 after showing the next, and n2 equals to the next. And for the new iteration, next will be calculated using these two values. And that's it. Let's try to compile it. So the 7 CPP, if it's a 5, you will have the such like a result. If you have the 10, you will have such like a result. With the 8, it's the sum of these two numbers. 13, it's a 5 plus 8, 8 plus 13, and so on. Okay. 8 CPP, I want to just rewrite this code because as you guess here, as you can understand, I equals to 0 comparison and shows n1. n1 initially equals to the 0. It's the same thing. I also 0 and 1 also 0. In the next if else, I equals to 1 and n also equals to 1. That's why let's combine these conditions. Let's remove this one. If I is less than 2, in that case, just print out I itself. And that's it. For I less than 2, I want to print out. If it's a 0, I want to print 0. If it's a 1, I want to print out 1. If I equals to the 2, in that case, it will go there and calculate the next element. 8th example. If it's a 6, if it's a 10, and go on. Okay, 9th example. So the Fibonacci sequence already discussed it. The factorial. About the factorial, I think all of you already know from your math schools, math subjects. Factorial means we want to multiply all numbers until the given number and find the result. So we have here 24. And you are given one number. You are given one number. Your task is find the factorial of that number. So any ideas how can I solve this problem?
Вместо I умножить на I.
So I have to write the 4, isn't it? So I'm writing the 4. I equals to the 0 as always, as we did before, I plus plus. And what I have to do inside it? So I'm starting from the 0 and until 4, until the n. Is it correct?
Yeah, you should multiply all numbers until your entry number. So it will be multiplied by multiple all numbers until the n.
How can I write it? So it is clear that I have to multiply it all numbers. So how it's a solution in this case? But I have to
operator multiplication and equal to, so n multiplied equal n, so it will multiply itself and then attach this value to itself.
So n multiplied
like
by
this.
n, like this, you mean?
Yes.
No, it will be just square.
Yes, we have n as a 4, which means n multiplied by n, which is a 4 square.
By
It should be I, yes.
I plus 1.
It should be the I. If it's I will start from the 0. All the values will be 0. That's why I have to start from 1, isn't it?
Yes.
So I start from the 1. And pay attention that we are changing the value of the n. And we are comparing with the n. Which means it's a misunderstanding inside of the for loop. Because this number shouldn't be, this number will be just increase it and increase it every time. And for loop will not stop. Yes, perfect. We have to create a variable, some variable, and the value of that variable will be 0 or not, or what?
1.
1, perfect. Because if it's a 0, what we are trying to do
All will be there.
Yes, instead of the n, we have to change the value of the k. So the k, it's just a same value like our which was like our CNT. CNT will just count how many times we found the divisor. In that case, k it's just this expression. K should be started from 1, and each time 1 multiplied by 1, 1 multiplied by 2, and so on until the n, and it should be inclusively, which means it should be the equal sign. Nice example. If it's a 4, oops, we don't have any cout. That's why we have added here the cout handle after the for loop. Pay attention that it should be the after the whole operation. So the 9 CPP 4, 5. So here I have the factorials of that numbers. Okay. Okay. Factorial sum of the numbers in the loop. Okay, sum of the numbers in the loop. Sum of the numbers in the loop. So we're talking about the you're given the numbers, list of numbers. So any numbers. And 4, 5, 2, and from the input list, we somehow enter the number 0. And your task is find the sum of all the numbers which were before the 0. So we have here 5, 12. Okay. So our task is to find this calculation until the 0, but we don't know how many elements we have before the 0. It might be the 2 elements, it might be the 100 elements, but we have to stop when we see the 0. So any ideas how can we solve this problem?
Can we use while?
Yes,
I think
we can use a for loop, we can use a while loop, but currently, as we discussed starting from the for loop, let's do it with the for loop, and we'll show this example in the while loop again. But now we want to solve it using the for loop.
Okay, in the condition we should have comparison with 0.
No, this is yes, it's abuse. Just you have to compare that it shouldn't be the 0. If it's not 0, in that case we have to somehow stop reading the numbers. But pay attention that these numbers can be infinitely very big. So the list can be very long, and you have to take each of them. Yes.
So I think we need to use 4 and if with break. So
perfect. Perfect. Yes, continue.
So we use if and if else. If our temporary number is equal to 0, we need to break, and else is not a 0, we need to continue adding numbers.
Okay, how can I start the for loop? Okay, your solution is correct, but how can I start for loop?
With empty
Yes.
This loop be infinite.
Start the infinity loop, isn't it? Because empty means we have to start the infinity loop because we don't know how many elements we have, and inside it, your colleague says that you have to create the variable, and inside the infinity loop we have to read it. After reading the value, we have to check if this number equals to the 0. If it's equals to the 0, we have to immediately break the for loop. If it's not 0, in that case, we have to find sum of these two numbers. For that, let's create another variable with the 0 value. Sum equals to the sum plus n, which is a sum plus equal to n. Isn't it? So 10 CPP 1 4 4 5 4 5 2 0, and you have the result. Any numbers, and in some cases 0, and this number is sum of these all variables which were before the 0. So this is just a simple solution. So this example can be also done with the while loop. That's why let's show the example using the while loop for understanding the correctness. So for that, I want to copy the Oops, I want to copy the whole over here. And we want to compare the for loop and while loop. So in the top side, in the top of the screen, you can see the syntaxes of the for loop. Here we have the while loop. For the while loop, you have to also use the keyword while. And inside of the parentheses, you have to write the condition. We don't have any sections here like in a for loop. We have only one section, which is a condition, which is located in the middle for the for loop. Initializing the iterator would be the before the while loop. Increasing and decreasing the value will be the inside of the while loop. At the end of the while loop, you have to increase or decrease the iterator. And inside of the while loop, you have the expression. So this is just a pseudo explanation of the syntaxes of the while loop. So initializing the variable, you have the some condition, you have some instruction, and the changing the iterator. As you can see, they are the both of them will do the same action, but you can use any of them. So if you don't have any restrictions by the condition of the problem, you can use both of them. So all the problems which can be solved using the for loop also can be solved using the while loop. That's why we have just these different syntaxes for explaining some problems will be the more clear if you use a while loop. For other problems, it might be useful. It might be clear and understandable if you use the for loop. Okay, that's why. Let's see the example for the while loop. Integer n equals to the 0, while this n is less than 10. See out this n. See out this n with the space and n plus plus. And this is just a simple example as we did before. The numbers from the 0 until the 9. Until the 9 like this. If you do it like 10, and here we have the 0, 0 like this, and inside it we have the minus minus. In that case, you will have the decreasing order values. And as you can see, they are the same, but the initializing the variable will be the outside of the while loop. While loop inside of the parentheses, you will have only the condition part, which is located in the middle for the for loop. And changing the value will be also inside of the while block. And that's the difference between these two loops. Go back with our examples. So go back this example. So the list of items which can be implemented using the while loop. So only difference here should be you have to change your for to the while, and inside of the while we don't have any sections, but we can do some condition. What was with the for loop? We are just running the infinity loop. So for the while loop, to run the infinity loop, you have to just write the correct true value always condition here. If you write like a true, it will be the infinity loop. If you write like a 1 equals to the 1, it will be also infinity loop. If you write the 10 equals to the 10, because this condition cannot be changed because it's just a manually set it true value always. And this is our infinity loop for the while loop. Even you are leaving like this also will be the infinity loop. Why? Because 10 it's a positive number. 10 it's a number except the 0, which means this is a true value, and while loop will always run the infinity loop for that case. So let's write over here all the cases. So infinity loop, which is a true, 1 equals to the 1, even 1 or even 10. Also will be the infinity for running the infinity loop. Let's try to use it true. And if you run it, you will have the same result, 14520. and this the other parts will be the just as simple as before. Okay, 13th example. List of words. So
one question.
So if you
Yeah.
have questions, again, take a note. String. So you're given sentences. Sentences. Count number of words in it. Example. Hello, my name is Fit. In that case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So result should be the 5. So we will discuss about these strings and working with these strings in the next lecture separately. But in this case, you have to work with the string and try to solve this problem to identifying the spaces and counting how many words we have inside of the sentences. So the is or they are also will be expected as a words. And this is our task that you have to try to solve at your home. Okay, we'll discuss, and we have the last example, finding the number, sum of the digits. So example is 1, 2, 3, and what we expected is 1 plus 2 plus 3, which is equals to the 6. So you're given one number, and you have to find such like a implementation. At the first, let's take a solution for the simplicity of the problem. Solution for the numbers in range 0, so 100 and 999. So all 3-digit numbers. We are guaranteed that the entered number will be the always 3-digit number. How can we solve the problem? So integer n equals to 1, 2, 3. Let's imagine. So how can I solve this problem? How can I find this sum? Integer n1. I want to take this one from the given number. How can I do that? So let's do it like sim n, and we are expecting that the number is 1, 2, 3 for now. How can I take the first one?
May we use the char?
So I cannot hear you, please.
May we use the char? So separate 1, 2, and 3 and addition.
So if I listen correctly, you want to take as a char, but we have the numbers, and we want to work only with the numbers.
We must divide
100.
100.
Yes. Dividing the 1 by 100 will take the first element, which is the first digit, which is the 1. Okay, next one. Oops. And the next n2, which is the number 2. How can I get these two number? It's the middle number. How can I take it?
We must divide by 10 and
Take a
And
model
then-
of 10.
Yes, take a model of 10.
take
Why?
a model of 10.
Yes, n divided by 10, it's 12, this part. And to taking a 2, you have to take a modular. After that, you will have the 2 here. And number 3, which is the last number, how can I take it?
We must take
By
a
modulo.
model of 10.
Modular 10, perfect. In that case, you will have the number 3, and as a result, you will have the n1 plus n2 plus n3. And this is solution. Okay, this is solution for this range of numbers. Okay, this range of numbers, and this is our solution, and this is correct. Okay, perfect. But in our case, let's take a little bit complex, and in the conditions we don't have any restrictions like this. The number might be something like this or something like this. and we don't know how many elements we have. How can I solve that problem? So we solve it partly if we have the such like a condition like a 3-digit numbers. How can we solve if we don't know how many digits we have? Any ideas?
Add them in list.
I cannot hear. Please correctly configure your microphone.
Okay. Could we add them in list, like a chart?
Please raise your hand. This one I'm talking. Oscar, I cannot understand your speech. Please change your microphone or please write it in your chat. Or please tell it a little bit louder or something with your microphone. You have to change it. Any ideas, guys? Oscar? Guys, any ideas? Вы же понимаете, да, задачу, ребят?
Да,
Там надо поделить все эти значения по одному, по целому. Там, допустим, как мы наши данные, да? Потом плюс, ну, потом сумму натянуть. Задача такая же?
Ну, задача, да. Ну, мы сейчас что? Мы частично решили задачу, когда у нас в условиях написано, что
123 было.
будет только трехзначное. Но сейчас мы это решили, в принципе, это всем понятно. В принципе, можно так решить для любых чисел, если мы точно знаем разряд, то есть трехзначные числа. Но мы сейчас говорим, что мы не знаем, сколько разрядов могут быть входящее число. Может быть только одна цифра, может быть там 10 разрядное число. И нам нужно решить ту же самую задачу.
Через string и через int перевести.
Окей, через string. Мы пока что не работаем со string, потому что это тоже один из вариантов. То есть перевести вот это все в string, это мы уже ближе к концу этого курса объясним вам, как это делать. Но мы сейчас уже работаем, то есть мы про string пока что ничего не знаем, но надо решить эту задачу, используя как раз таки числовые.
Нам стоит с последнего диджита начать.
Окей, хорошо. Допустим, мы последнюю берем. Каким образом?
Модуль 10.
Модуль 10. Окей, это понятно. Мы все понимаем, что модуль 10 это последняя цифра. Теперь мы говорим, когда мы не знаем, сколько элементов или сколько чисел или сколько разрядов для входящего элемента, тогда сразу же мы понимаем, что мы должны использовать loop. Isn't it? When we don't know how many elements we have or how many digits we have in a given number, in that case, you have to immediately understand that you have to use a loop. So we created the 3 separate values because we know that all numbers will be in this range. But now we don't know. That's why let's start for using the while loop. Okay. While loop, while our n is more than 0, which is not 0, we want to do some action. So you talked about the last digit. So the last digit of the given number. So I'm creating the variable k equals to n divided by, so it's a modulo by 10. In our case, it's a 3, isn't it? So I'm writing here like explanation in the multi-line comment. So in the first iteration, n equals to the 1 to 3. And k equals to the 3, isn't it? N modulo by 10. In our case, if n equals to the 123, in that case, k will be the 3. Okay, our task is I have to find the sum of the numbers. That's why let's immediately create the sum value, which is equals to the 0. So I took the last digit let's add this digit to the sum immediately. Okay, okay, I did it. So 3 added to the sum. So I have to take the next element, which is a 2. For that, I have to remove this one. How can I do that?
Divide by
With
10.
minus.
Yes, divide by 10. Perfect. N equals to N divided by 10. 123 divided by 10, it will be what? 12.
12.
If it's a 12, K will be the 2. So I am taking the K, which is a 3, and adding the 3 to the sum, and after that, changing the number N. Changing the number N becomes as 12, and 12 will be goes to the starting point of our while loop, and 12 will be over here. 12 modulo 2, oh sorry, modulo 10, it's a 2. And again, it's the second one. These two added to the sum. And we are taking the N divided by 10 again. If 12 divided by 10, it will be the 1. 1 modulo by 10, it's again 1. And this 1 will be added to the sum. And after that, in the fourth example, sorry, not example, it's the iteration. In the fourth iteration, N divided by 10. 1 divided by 10, which is a 0. After the N becoming as a 0, it goes to the upside and check this condition. And this condition returns false. Why? Because N is equals to the 0. And it finishes the working. And after all operations, we already have the as a result. It should itself will be breaked by, because this condition will be returned false. If it's a false, while loop will just stop the working, and that's it. Let's try to run it. 14 CPP. If you run it 1, 2, 3, oops, we have some mistakes. Okay, instead of this N, we have here so instead of the 1, we have here the N. Again, run it again. 1, 2, 3, we have the result. 1, 2, 3, 4, we have the result, which is the correctly. So, again, K, it's the last example, last digit. We're taking the any number. So we are taking the any number. It doesn't matter how many digits we have. We are taking from the last element and one by one getting each element and adding to our sum. And after getting the last element, we are removing it. Getting last element, removing it until this N not becoming as a 0. If it's a 0, it means we finish it to calculating our solution. That's it. Let's take the 14 and 1 or 15 CPP, and inside it we want to refactor our code, which means this part can be done like this. We already know about it. This part also will be the sum plus K, which is also understandable for us. And K, it's a not usable variable. That's why we can remove this one also. And this is also the correct solution. Sum, we are immediately adding the last element and removing it. Getting the last element again and removing it until the N exists, which means N is not 0. Let's try to implement the same thing for using the using the for loop. So let's remove the whole other stuffs. For the for loop, so the for loop, we have here 3 sections. So this condition will be in the middle, isn't it? In the middle, we have the condition part, and in the last section, we have the changing the iterator. In our case, iterator is the N. That's why we can take this one and put it over here. In that case, we don't have any square brackets here, and that's it. Even inside of the one line, we can solve this problem. So while inside of the for we don't initialize it any iterator because n itself works in our case as an iterator. We are saying while n more than 0, we have to take the last element, add to the sum, and remove it. Take the element, add to the sum, and remove it until n is more than 0. Let's check it again. 16 CBB 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. Okay, it's time to the break. Please raise your hand if you have questions before the 16th example. Okay, I have the message here, the add team to the list and separate it to the list. We don't have any list yet. About the list and arrays we'll talk a little bit later. Можно брать модуль, да, Анель, правильно, то, что мы сейчас сделали. Okay, any other questions, guys? Please raise your hand in any language if you have questions, I think, and they might be and there must be the questions. Because we're just solving problems. And okay, Damir.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Tell how to find the divisors of numbers and how to find the minimal divisor of number.
So which example?
Not in this case. I ask how to find the minimal divisor in any time.
So minimal divisor you can find the divisors of the number. So you have to list inside of the list of the divisors. You have to just take the first one and that's it. So it's a minimum divisor.
Okay,
starting from the 1 until you're looking until your given number, and if you found the first divisor, it's just a minimum divisor, and that's it. Окей, а насколько тем мы отстаем? Мы, в принципе, не отстаем. Сейчас на втором уроке мы начинаем массивы, а массивы — это как раз тема на сегодняшний урок по силабусу. Как узнать длину числа, к примеру, 1, 2, 3, это 3. Вот то, что мы сейчас сделали, смотрите. Так, это 16-й пример. Ну вот просто берете, вот тут создаете, допустим, integer n, или там integer cnt, который равняется 0. И, в принципе, открываем вот эти скобки, теперь нужны, да, если несколько. И cnt++, он сколько раз отработает, столько и у нас цифр. Так, кто у нас? Давлет, надеюсь, понятно. Так.
Извините, вопрос. А в чем разница между i++ и ++i?
Нужно пересмотреть предыдущие лекции.
Ага,
Нужно поднимать руки, когда спрашиваем.
Хорошо.
Окей, хорошо. Мы про это прям по примерам показывали, Артем, поэтому лучше пересмотреть все предыдущие лекции. Фокс, еще вопросы? Пока уберем.
Когда мы будем проходить списки?
Ну, сейчас мы спрашиваем про примеры, которые вот здесь. А про другие вопросы можем позже обсудить. По этим примерам есть задачи? Вопросы? Окей, если вопросов нет, тогда 5-10 минут брейк. Дальше продолжим.
Окей.
So, guys, let's continue. So 17th example. And all other things which listed here, I will just paste like a plan in this folder, which means this file will be uploaded to the GitHub, and all other tasks can be done by you at your home. And now I want to move to uncheck it. So I want to move to the next section, which is an array. So what is an array? So first question, in the previous examples until today's lectures, we can create a variable called a, which can store in the memory number 2 as an integer number. So if I have the two variables, I can create a second variable and store the number in that variable. So question is, how can I store the 100 numbers somewhere? So in that case, I will help come up to help the array in the programming languages. In any programming language, we have such like a collection called array, or in other languages might be like a list and so on. So array, it's just a list of elements. In one variable. And so let's see the example here like this. Addresses array. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's imagine we have the 4 elements. So like the addresses, and we have here indexes. It's a 0, it's a 1, it's a 2, it's a 3. So we have such like a free inner values for creating the array, one array in the C++. Let's imagine and see the syntaxes. How can you create the array? So for creating the array, you have to define the data type. Let it be the integer, or it might be any other data type that we already know. It's a key point that array which created using the one data type cannot store the other ones. If you created in the array using the integer, you can store only the integer numbers. So integer is a data type, then they will write the name of the array. Let it be the error, ERR in our case. And in the square brackets, we have to set the size of the array. You cannot live like this without any values and without any set size, because inside of the C++, the arrays are the fixed collections that you have to create the number of elements. So this is just as initializing the array with the 4 values, as we did before. Here in graphically, you can understand it like this. So array created, which means in the memory, in the computer's memory, occupied 4 value cells. For each value can be stored the integer numbers, integer number 1, 2, 3, 4. So how can I assign the values? To assign the values, you have to assign it using the indexes. So each array will start from the 0's index. It cannot be started from the 1. Always by default, it will start from the 0. We have the 4 elements in our array, but indexes started from the 0 until the 3, which means if we have the 4 elements in the array, the last element's index will be the n-1. In our case, 4-1, which is a 3. So 0 means 10. Array 1, for instance, 20. Array 2, 30. Array 3, which is a 40. And like this, you can assign the values. So how can you, if you print out the R like this, R is our array, you are expecting that it will print out our given array, but it will print out something else. It will print out the address of the first value. In our case, first value is a 10. What we returned here, it's an address in the memory that stores the number 10. We can solve it like, we can prove it like using the star sign, and about it we will discuss in the last lectures of this course about the pointers. The star sign before the address means, please, we are telling to the compiler that, please, I have that address in the memory. Give me the value of that address. So the star sign means, give me the value. Okay, you can say it like, to print out the values, you can say it like array 0. So using the square brackets, you can pass the index of the array. In our case, it's a zeros array, zeros value. So we can put like array 1, array, and so on until the 3. But this is okay if we have the only 4 elements. So what will be if we have the 100 elements inside of our array? It's not that solution that listing out all of them using the cout and putting the space between them. That's why in that case you have to use the for loop we already discussed before. For integer I in our case will be like an indicator to the indexes. So indexes starts from 0 until the n without including, because n, so in our case n, it's a 4. It's a 4, that's why we have to go until the 4. Or you can create here n, which is a 4 for now, and we're creating the array like this, and until the n, and each time I'm changing the index of the array by 1. And inside it I want to print out array I and space, and that's it. And in this case we don't have any problems with the big number of elements inside of the array. So it will just print out all the values from the all the values inside of the array. So as we did before, if you cout array, it will print out the address of the first element, which means if you put the star sign, you will get the value. It's the same as, it's identical as array 0, which means array plus 0, like this. So array is a link to the first element of the array, address of the first element. We are adding the 0, which means we are taking the current element and getting the value. If you put like a plus 1, in that case it's the same thing as a square bracket and 1, and you will have the second element. And the same thing for the next elements. So which means if we are when we are accessing to the elements of the array using the square brackets like this and passing the index, at the background it will implement such like a functionality, such like a operation. So the array, it's not a whole value. It cannot store the whole value. One variable cannot physically store the all values of the array. It will store only the starting point address of the array, and that's it. So for instance, you can do it accessing to the arrays of the zeros value multiplied by 2. Array of the 0 plus 20. and that's it. So any mathematical operations can be done for assigning. So the left hand side will be where will be the saved the value, on the right hand side will be the executed the value of the calculation. And this type of the square bracket syntaxes is comfortable for the developers, and that's why it was created such like a syntaxes. But you have to understand that at the end, at the background, it will be something like this. Okay. Oops. Let's open this one. And you will have such like a syntaxes for the arrays. Okay. 18 CPP. For arrays, indexes, addresses already discussed. So if you have the integer, for instance, a, which consists from the let it be the float, 4 elements. If you have already defined if you already know while initializing the initial values of the array, in that case you can do it like this. Immediately assign the values not one by one as we did here, but using inside of the curly brackets 3.1.1.9, let it be the 2.0, 2.0, it doesn't matter. So these numbers will be stored inside of this array. So we have here the 4 elements, and if you will try here, to add one more element, it should say that you cannot, because the exit limit of the initializer. So you have to change the size of the array to store the 5 elements. So the type of the array can be any flex. So the flex, let it be the 10. So any data type that we already know, you can create the arrays and initialize the values. Initializing values. So again, if you have the number of elements that you can already implement it, in that case, you can skip the number of, sorry, it's be the B. In that case, you can skip the number of elements, because depending on this list, compiler can identify automatically this size of the array, and it will just assign it while creating of the array B. Also, it depends on you, so you can also set it manually, or if you can, if you are assigning the initial value immediately, in that case you can leave the size of the array, but you cannot do it like this. You cannot do it like this. You can create you are creating the array without any initializing values and without any size. This is incorrect, because compiler cannot understand how many cells and how many memory should be occupied for your value, for your array. That's why this is a wrong. Wrong array, because you cannot do it without anything. So the declaration, I think already accessing the values you already discussed. So the accessing the values will be using the square brackets and passing the indexes. So let's copy a 19th example. For instance, if let's imagine that we have such like a input. For instance, 5, 2, 4, 1, 8. Let it be the 4. Such like an input, we have n and n elements given, and you have to find let it be the multiplication of even numbers. From this list, you have to find the multiplication of even numbers. So in that case, for instance, how can
16.
and store in our array, and how can you manipulate? I want to show this type of the task. So integer n, you have to declare firstly with the integer n, which is this number, and after that create an array. So you cannot create an array before assigning the value. So you created the n, but your n is not defined, so without any data, without any number, and you cannot create such like a array without undefined value. That's why pay attention that the creation of the array should be after the reading the data. So after that, after creating the array, so you have to start reading the data. So this data should be stored in our array. So for that, we are creating the for loop until the n and I++. And inside it, we want to send, in the previous examples, we are sending only the to the variables. But in our case, we have to assign to the array one by one, starting from the zeros index, which means A0 will store the number 2. A1 will store the number 3, and so on until the end. That's why I am putting here the I. And here we don't have any equal sign because n it's the number 4, but the last index it's a 3. And it will start from 0 and until the 3. That's why this is just the reading part. And after that, after reading and storing all the things inside of the array, you can do any other manipulations. You can loop over, loop over your array again. So the I0 and I++, and check your conditions if AI it's an element of the array. If AI multiplied by 2 equals to the 0, in that case multiplication, which means you have to create here the integer k equals to the 1, and k equals to, oh sorry, not equals to, it's multiplied by AI, because the solution and result should be so the result should be even numbers from the given even numbers 2 and 8 from our input, and multiplication should be, so the result should be multiplication of these two numbers. That's why I'm creating the k as a result of the multiplication, and each time the founded even number will be multiplied to the k and stored in the k value. And after that, after the whole operations, I want to print out the k. So the G++ and 19 CVB and this type of the input. And so this is just example how can you read this type of the input and manipulate with them. So which is 16 here. So accessing to the value of the array, other operations. So so as you can see, we can create in the previous examples we already did it. For instance, B0 can be so that you can create a double x 1.5, and B0 can be the x or x multiplied by x, anything else. So that on the right side might be any data type. So sorry, any value, but the data type should be the same. So you cannot store inside of the double list. You cannot store the some string and so other data types. So you can create also the list of chars. Char, for instance, Word and H E L L O. Such like a list of chars you can also implement, so you can also store as a list of elements, and that this word stored as a list of this hello world stored as the array of the chars inside of this word array, and you can manipulate for you can manipulate with any data. For instance, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So just a fourth element equals to the big O. Let it be something like this. You can also manipulate all these are the results. For instance, if you have the 4 elements, you can also do it like accessing the true, false, false, and true. If it's a Boolean value, you have to store only true or false in the in your arrays. So it depends on your task. So the 1D arrays, reading the number and showing them, already discussed. So we finished it in 19th example. So this part is a reading part. Given data. After reading everything, so n was read it initial, so the data, and after that your logic to solve your problem, using your using the array. So it also depends on your task. So sum of all elements in array, so we solve it more complex task. And so create an array with the n size and with the n elements we already discussed. So given array already discussed. So for today, it's enough for the arrays. So the new titles and the new items for the arrays will be discussed in the next lecture time at the Saturday. So that during the practice lesson, please ask the more questions for your assistance. And now, time to your questions. Please raise your hand and you can ask your questions. We have about 5-10 minutes until the end of the lesson. So questions, guys? Guys, any questions?
No.
Да. Jandarбек.
In 19 SPP, could you tell why you wrote that k is equal to 1?
K equals to 1. So what we are trying to find, so the task says multiplication of even numbers from given list. So we identified that the given list contains even numbers 2 and 8. And the result should be 2 multiplied by 8. And if we have, for instance, here we have, for instance, 4. In that case, we have the 4 here, and it should be multiplied by 4, which is 64. So for that reason, as you remember from the example of the factorial, if you remember somewhere here we have the factorial task. Where is that? So here we have the factorial task. In that task, you have to the same problem. You have to multiply all the numbers starting from the 1 until the given number and find the multiplication of all of them. So in that case also we created a k equals to the 1 and k was multiplied by I. I ranges from the 1 until the n inclusively. But in our last example, we are doing the same task. So we are creating a k which equals to the 1 and multiply for those numbers which are even. Are you with me?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Artem, please.
In 19 CPP, the part where we read given data, why there is no what's it called? Почему нет скобок после for?
Yes, смотрите, когда мы открываем блок, если после блока, если только одна строка, тогда можно писать без скобки. Если, допустим, если я хочу что-либо здесь еще вторую строку писать, тогда я должен уже обязательно, если это не будет, тогда синтакс ошибка будет. А если одна строка, я могу, в принципе, писать эту скобку, можно и не писать. Поэтому, если вы заметили, где-то, когда я if пишу, иногда я могу пропустить. Вот, допустим, вот тут тоже. Внутри for одна строка, поэтому я не пишу. Если я пишу, это, в принципе, не проблема. То есть это, наоборот, правильно будет. Для визуально определить, что эта строка находится внутри for, через скобки это правильно. То есть визуально это четко видно. Но если только одна строка стоит, тогда можно и не писать. Вот, допустим, вот тут я не могу. Если я вот эту беру, тогда будет ошибка. Почему? Потому что он может прочитать только вот эту первую строку, а вторую он не может уже. Он не понимает, что это находится внутри while. Понятно, да?
Ага, здорово, очень удобно. А это только для for и для while, для if нет такого?
Нет, для любого if. Я вот сейчас не могу найти пример, где я для if делал. Так, давайте посмотрим. Вот он if. Вот, по сути, если до брейка, если я, допустим, делаю что-либо, допустим, n равно n плюс 1, например, да, допустим, предположим, тогда вот это выражение тоже не будет работать, потому что if не понимает, что брейк есть внутри него. Тогда я должен поставить уже вот так, что я n меняю сначала, потом делаю брейк. Это все находится внутри if. А если у меня нет такого вот этого первой строки, тогда я могу, в принципе, убрать. Вот таким образом.
Понятно, спасибо большое.
Там, где открываются фигурные скобки, когда открываются блоки, если там одна строка, тогда можно не писать. Но для начала рекомендую всем, чтобы вы писали со скобками, чтобы потом не понимать ошибку, где находится, если у вас приходят какие-то проблемы. Поэтому это вот зависит от количества строк после блока. Так, еще вопросы? Так, если вопросов нет, тогда, в принципе, на сегодня все. Спасибо всем. Я рекорд останавливаю.